Hi folks, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thanks for joining me here on my YouTube channel, the Bushcraft Padawan. Before we dive into the main meat of this particular video, there's just something that I want to say, something that I want to pass on. A week ago today, I was standing almost in this very spot. Actually, I was just over there a few meters, and I recorded a video that I uploaded later that day. The video was about what I would pack in a summer lightweight type overnight bushcrafting pack, what I would pack for that overnighter, and I uploaded it. I said in that video that I just hit 1,300 subscribers on the nose overnight. And I said to people, if you're not yet a subscriber and you fancy helping me on my way to 1,400 subscribers, then please click the subscribe button. Well, fast forward a week, and as of a few minutes ago, I am standing at 1,655 subscribers, from 1,300 to 1,655. That video that I uploaded a week ago today has attracted over 5,100 views. It has become, in the 18 months that I've been doing this, a little over 18 months, my most viewed video in only 7 days. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you've watched that video, thank you. If you haven't, I'm linking to it up here. I'm not shy of getting a few more views on it. If you've watched it, thank you very much. If you subscribed as a result of that video, thank you very much. If you subscribed as a result of my channel coming up in your feed and you liked what you saw and you subscribed, thank you very much. I guess what I'm saying is, thank you. If you in the past week or so have done something or interacted in some way with my channel, I cannot thank you enough. I really, really appreciate it. I have always considered that what I put out there, that I gained respect of a couple of hundred views, 200 or 300 here or there. Some of my older videos have attracted just over 1,000 views, but to think that I've had over 5,100 in a week is something quite special. So in whatever way, shape or form you've interacted with my channel, thank you very, very much. I shall stop waffling now, and I shall get into the main meat as to what we are here to talk about and have a look at this week. In that video that I've just mentioned that I recorded a week ago, I very briefly referred to my Thermarest inflatable mat. In actual fact, it's the Thermarest Neoair xTherm. That's the specific name of the product that I bought from Thermarest. And once I watched the video back, whilst I was editing it, I thought to myself, I've always wanted to do a review on that, but I'm not the sort of person who does a review just as I open the box or after an overnighter. I like to kind of figure out whether it truly is of value and worth its place in my kit. I've been using that Thermarest now for a little over 2 years. Yeah, a little over 2 years. I've used it on week-long expeditions, week-long courses. I've used it for overnighters. I've used it for the odd 2 or 3 nighter here or there, all here in the UK. I've used it between temperatures of around -2 or 3 degrees C to probably daytime temperatures of around 27, 28, 29 degrees C. Clearly those temperatures drop at night, which is when I'm usually laid on it. So those are the conditions in which I've used this particular Thermarest. So why don't I give you a little breakdown, give you my little thoughts on having used it for a couple of years or so. So the actual Thermarest itself came with a repair kit, which I have added to an enhanced, fingers crossed, and I really hope that I'm not tempting fate here. I've never actually had, crossing both fingers here, that I've never actually had to use the repair kit, but it comes with a repair kit. It also comes with this massive bag. Look at that. That's only actually the Thermarest inside there, but yet you've got the rest of this bag. I will come to what the reason is for them sending that massive bag in just a few minutes' time. Inside that bag is the actual Thermarest itself, and it's about the size, for those of you that that use the British Army or have seen the British Army black 1 litre plastic water bowl, it's about the size of that, give or take. It's about the size of that. There's my hand next to it there, and I've only got small hands, to be honest. I don't have large hands. I have a lady's hands. It's very small hands. I keep this inside this particular stuff sack. For those of you that have watched my video in which I talk about my sleeping system, I'll link to it up here. I say that I don't like to put things inside stuff sacks. I like to stuff them into the bag itself. I make an exception here, and I make an exception because let's be perfectly honest, a Thermarest, an inflatable bed, is nothing more than just a big fancy balloon, a big fancy lilo, if you like. It's quite delicate, even if they're fairly well constructed ones, they're quite delicate, so I like to give it as much protection as possible, and I keep it inside that small outer bag when it's inside my bag, when it's inside my rucksack. So there is the Thermarest Neoair xTherm out of the bag. You can see it there, and again my hand next to it for comparison. It's quite expensive. Boy, it's quite expensive. I got a discount on this and it was still 114 Great British pounds. That's a lot of money. Can you pay too much money for a good night's sleep when you're camping out in the sticks though? Well, I guess there are lots of opinions about that. I'm not going to say yes you should or no you shouldn't. Everybody's at a different scale in terms of their wealth and how much they can afford to spend on things like that. This was bordering on being a stretch for me, if I'm being really, really honest. If I hadn't have got a discount, I wouldn't have bought it. If I hadn't have done a lot of shopping around and lots of comparisons, I wouldn't have bought it. With the benefit of hindsight, I'm glad I did buy it. Maybe I'm stealing my thunder from the end of this video, but I'm glad that I bought it. It is quite expensive though. Are there cheaper versions of Thermarests out there? Yes, there are. Are there cheaper inflatable sleeping mats out there? Yes, there are. Are there more expensive versions? Believe it or not, but yes, there are. I bought this a combination of the price, the feedback, the reviews, the compactness and the lightweightness of it as well was the reason for me purchasing this. So there's an overview of what you get with the kit. There's an overview of the cost and my opinions on that. Let's actually take a closer look at the bag itself, how I've used it and what I've thought about it. Sorry, not the bag, the Thermarest itself, the sleeping mat itself, how I've got on with it and what I've thought about it. Let's talk about inflating the Thermarest first of all. It's got the very standard, traditional sort of screw cap here, screw cap nozzle that you can force air into and will open the bag. As I said, it's just a big fancy balloon at the end of the day. Now, for years, I've always inflated a Thermarest by unscrewing that nozzle and blowing into it. And at some point, it's inflated enough, you close the nozzle down quickly and the air remains in there. However, it wasn't until I actually purchased this bag and was doing some of the research and reading some of the reviews that there's a school of thought that if you blow into the bag, you are introducing moisture from your breath into the inside. I keep calling it a bag, into the inside of the mat, the Thermarest itself. You're introducing moisture. And that even once you collapse it and roll it down and expel all the air, there's still an element of moisture in there. Now over time that moisture can actually turn mouldy, it can start to smell and is impossible to clean out. Which is where this bag that I showed you earlier on comes into play. Traditional opening at one end, but at the other end you'll notice, see my fingers there waving at you through this clear plastic nozzle. There's a clear rubberized nozzle here and there we go. I'm just poking my finger through a small round opening. There you go, there's a good angle there in that rubberized window. The theory is this: you take the nozzle, you unscrew the nozzle, you place this rubberized window with a hole inside it. There it is. You place that over the nozzle. You then grab the bag, you grab air in the bag, and you force the air into the bag itself. Open the bag again, collect air in it, force it out of the stuff sack into the mat. Allow the stuff sack to expand, collect air, close the top, force the air through the stuff sack and into the mat itself. Now, I said the theory is, in actual fact that works. Trust me, it works. The bag is nothing more than your lungs, the plastic rubberized window on one end is nothing more than your lips, and you're simply blowing or pushing the air through this stuff sack into the bag itself. I can't believe that it still doesn't introduce moisture, because unless you are in a zero moisture environment, there's still going to be moisture in the air, although I'll admit, certainly in my environment, there's probably more in my breath than there actually is in the air itself. I'll accept that. So I did this. I followed this approach for quite a few months, possibly the first year of using it. Every time I went out, I used this particular bag. To be perfectly honest, it really got on my nerves. It takes a long time to do it. I don't know what the cubic capacity is of my lungs. I don't know what the cubic capacity is of that bag with an average collection and a push through of the air. I don't know. What I do know is that it is much more time consuming, and I've never timed it, but I just know it's more time consuming than big breath, big breath, big breath. Already I can start to see this mat is starting to fill out compared to the 2 or 3 bagfuls that I put into it. So yes, I'm sure I am introducing moisture into the sleeping mat as opposed to using the stuff sack process. I like the idea, I like the principle. It just takes a lot longer. And to be perfectly honest, if the inside of it does go smelly and mouldy, the amount of times that I actually use it in its entire lifespan, it will have, you know, it will have had a good innings if it degrades to that point. And even if it does, you know, a big part of me kind of thinks, well, so what? I don't come into contact with it. I don't eat off it. I don't have any interaction with the surface where the mould will be. I'm sure there are bigger problems when you're living and operating out in the woods. I'm sure there are other things that I will come into contact with that could give me, you know, more of a health condition than some mouldy surface that I don't come into contact with in any way. So bag's a great idea. I'm sure for some it will be, particularly if you've got perhaps some breathing difficulties, asthmatic, if you go lightheaded, you know, if you've got some form of condition that precludes you from doing a lot of huffing and puffing into Thermarest, then that is a bloody good option. For me, I fingers crossed, I don't have that sort of condition. I just prefer to use the good old Mark 1 lungs. Thank you very much. And here it is, my fully inflated Thermarest Neoair xTherm, courtesy of the good old Mark 1 lungs. So there it is, fully inflated. So now I've got it inflated, let's talk about how I've used it and what I've found from using it and any feedback on that. Myself, when I'm using this, I place it in between my bivvy bag and my sleeping bag. So it's almost sandwiched, it is sandwiched between my bivvy bag and my sleeping bag. I find that prevents me from slipping off it because I can't slip very far because it's inside my bivvy bag. So I find that a big advantage as well. It stops me slipping off it. The other advantage is it affords this a little bit more protection, the bivvy bag base, than just putting it on the ground. I do try and clear the ground, but I can never be convinced that I've got every possible sharp stick, stone, thorn, or anything like that off the ground. It's an expensive lesson to find out that I should have put it inside the bivvy bag, so that's what I do. I put it inside the bivvy bag just to give it that little bit more protection. If you want to know more about that, in this corner of the screen up here, I'm linking back to a video I did quite some time ago where I talk about how I've hacked my sleeping system. Go and take a look at that and I'll just explain that in a little bit more context than perhaps in this video here. The first night I slept on this, for the first 30 to 45 minutes, it was the most uncomfortable night's sleep I've had in the woods for a very long time. And it quickly dawned on me why it was so uncomfortable. I put every bit of puff into this that I possibly could. It was fully inflated. And that was the problem, it was fully inflated. It felt like I was sleeping on a plank of wood. So much rigidity in this. What I did was I kind of twisted half over in the sleeping bag. I got hold of the nozzle, bearing in mind that all of my body weight was on this now, and I just let some air out of it. I let myself sink into it. Not much, I didn't have to open it for very long, just enough to sink into it rather than be laid on it. What a night's sleep after that, and that's something that I've done ever since. I fully inflate it so that I know my starting point. I lay on it, I get in my sleeping bag, I'm just about to go to sleep. I just, for a few seconds at the most, let some air out, let myself sink in, close it up again, and that's me, an absolutely cracking night's sleep. As I say, I've slept in this in not the most horrendous overnight conditions you could imagine, but it was -2 or 3, so clearly, you know, there was cold air temperature, there was a cold ground temperature, didn't feel a thing, not a thing at all. So that was a big plus point for it. I do toss and turn in the night, and you know, there were occasions when I approached the edge of this. If it wasn't inside my bivvy bag, then I would have rolled off it and I would have had a much colder and more uncomfortable night. If you look online for some reviews of this, you do get people saying that it's very noisy, that it sounds like you're sleeping on a crisp packet. Well, I've never slept on a crisp packet, so I don't have anything to compare it to. People were saying that if you crinkle it, listen, if you do that it sounds quite noisy. And they're absolutely right, if you do that, it does sound quite noisy. So what I find is, just don't do that. Just don't rustle it between your fingers like a crisp packet. There is an element of noise with it, yes, there is. There's no doubt about that, you can maybe hear it from here. There is an element of noise, but just think about this in context. It's between your bivvy bag and your sleeping bag. You're in your sleeping bag. You may have a hat on, you may have the hood up on your sleeping bag. If it's the summer weather, you may not do that. I personally sleep with earplugs in when I'm out in the woods. As much as I love the sound of nature, I'm not a big fan of it at 4:10 in the morning when the dawn chorus starts in the spring and summer here in the UK. So I sleep with earplugs in. There is an element of noise, but I've never noticed it when it's been important, i.e. when I'm going to sleep or when I am asleep. It's just not been a factor. So if you're considering this, if you're reading those reviews about it being noisy, there is an element of noise to it, yes. Is it noisy? Personally, no, it wasn't. It certainly didn't stop me going to sleep, so that wasn't a big problem with it at all. There we have it, my review of the Thermarest Neoair xTherm. Been using it for just over 2 years, predominantly here in the UK, -2 to 3 C to daytime temperatures of 27, 28 degrees C. I've left it inflated for the longest for 6 days, 6 nights and 5 days. Inflated it on afternoon 1 and it stayed inflated right through to the end. Didn't need to add any extra air to it. It's lightweight, it's compact, it's kept me warm when I've needed to be kept warm, it's kept me off the ground when I've needed to be kept off the ground. It's expensive in comparison to some sleeping mats. It's cheaper in comparison to other sleeping mats. But as a typical bloke, I don't have a great deal of money, I'm not flush with money, I don't have it coming out of my ears, I have to work hard for the things that I buy, as most of you will have to do as well. It wasn't an insignificant cost. I had to save up for this, I had to think about this, I had to do a lot of soul searching for this, I had to hide the cost of this from her indoors. But all in all, it's a good purchase. I'm glad I made the purchase. If anything were to go wrong with this and it wasn't a manufacturing fault and I had to buy another one, another sleeping mat, I would not err to consider this as part of that selection process for another sleeping mat in the future. Hopefully that's helped to inform your thinking about this particular mat. Even if you've got a mat Maybe there's been something in this video that's made you think, oh, I'd never thought of that. Maybe I've never thought about letting some air out once I'm on it. Maybe I've never thought about putting it between my bivvy bag and my sleeping bag to give it some protection and also to stop me rolling off it. So even if you're not in the market for a sleeping mat, maybe there's been something here in this video for you. If there has been, please do consider liking this video and hitting that share button below, either on Facebook or on Twitter or on YouTube. You know what to do with that share button. If you're not yet a subscriber, I'm crossing my fingers that this has the same impact as last week. If you're not yet a subscriber, do click on the link in the bottom corner of this screen here, and as if by magic, you will become a subscriber, along with the 1,655 other people as well. Other than that, thank you for watching the video. Have a great time in the woods. It's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from him. Cheers.